This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Welcome everyone to the CPC meeting. The first order of business is open time for the public. Now, you all are the public, but you have your own time scheduled on the calendar, so we'll wait a minute for that. No other members of the public present. Next, we will approve the minutes from September 6th, or review them. I just have a couple edits. If you look right here, see how I give you some edits? It says,
I just
Cindy Palmer.
pasted yours.
Yes, so the old ones are still there. So these two lines need to go away.
Oh, okay, all right.
And this one too. We are working on transparency. So those two are just to repeat.
And then put yours there. Okay, I didn't realize that.
No
Okay.
problem.
Perfect.
And then the only other thing is down where it says Sierra will present for the select board. It says June 12th. It's supposed to be September 12th, towards the end there. Does anyone else have the edits to the minutes? All right.
Pardon me, is Bob zooming in?
Bob is not on the Zoom yet.
Yeah, okay. I didn't know if I should put him in.
Yeah, we'll see if he shows up.
We'll wait to hear.
Okay.
Any more changes?
We have a motion to approve.
Aye. Your motion?
Second.
Someone has to make a motion to approve
Yeah.
the minutes as amended.
I'll make the
And I
motion.
second.
Okay, seconded. All right, all in favor? Aye. Okay. And it's approved unanimously. Okay, next item on the agenda is the CPA account balance update. I didn't pull it up in front of me. It turns out we have more money in our account than we thought. So initially we thought we were gonna have to issue a bond if we wanted to support the Mountain Waters project. So first we were worried about going through that whole process. Then we thought that we had to pass a new CPC budget before we could potentially approve the project.
In order to try to avoid the bond.
In order to try to avoid the bond. So you all, I've been forwarding you the emails, but just to summarize. And then we learned that that wasn't true either. So Bradley let us know that the numbers he gave us back at the beginning of the fiscal year were not correct. He thought he hadn't taken out the projects from May yet, but he had. So
It was an older project it was the park project.
okay. Okay. So what this means for us is that when we hear this project proposal about Mountain Waters, we don't need to be worrying about a bond or extra hoops we need to jump through. We have the money in our account to fund it outright, the portion that they're asking for, if we wanted to. And we wouldn't have to issue a bond or anything like that. We can just vote based on the merits of the project in other ways.
Between undesignated and open space, we have $496,000. Which is less than they're asking for. It will get tricky when we're doing other projects that come in front of us, but I think we can make that work. And we'll talk about the budgeting process going forward later. So.
Indeed. So, with that said, does anyone have any questions? Everyone kind of understand the concept? Okay.
And then I think from last time we learned that it's like a 2-year, it says here too. Oh, we're gonna learn more in a minute. But it'll be sort of not all in 1 year.
I think we would agree. They need us to agree to the funding, put all the money up this year to make it work for the state grant, if I understand.
Correct. Okay.
So we would be voting on the total amount to make it work for them.
So we'll be voting tonight on it, basically.
I mean, it is up to us if we decide to vote. It's our right to say we need more time to decide, but it would be expeditious of us to vote if we want to move it forward, because we want to get this, it would be beneficial to get this on the town meeting warrant for a special town meeting. We don't know yet when that's going to be. We just know we need 6 weeks between this vote and it going on the town meeting.
And more specifically, do I understand correctly that you need an agreement from the town before the end of December 31st, 2023.
Yes, for the state
in order to
grant
make-
requirements, we need the money voted in by December 31st.
So we lose state grant money, or they lose money that helps us unless we move on it now. I think we,
That's right. So we just have Bob joining us on Zoom. So let me get 1 minute to make sure he's here and catch him up if missed anything. Bob, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so we were just going over, I know you saw the emails, but I just wanted to reiterate that we now understand that we do not need to issue a bond if we want to fund the Mountain Waters project. And we don't need to rush to pass a new CPA budget before the town meeting if we want to pass it. We have the funds, enough funds currently in our account if we want to fund this project. So I know you saw the email chain, but that's sort of the latest, is we thought we had all these things we had to do, but it turns out we have the funds if we want to go forward with this. Does that make sense?
Good, good.
Okay, great. So I'm going to turn you around so you can see Bridget, and we'll move on to, let me just see if that,
Can I insert one comment at this point? I have this tremendous
L'Oreal.
sinking feeling. I intended to bring you a copy of the updated application, and I forgot. And so you've seen it from before.
Yes.
Which is, you know, the whole description of the project. So I hope you'll allow us to proceed based, this, you know, Bridget's going to do a presentation on all aspects of the project, but I know you have your own application, and it's been submitted before without numbers because we didn't have numbers. So I hope the committee will allow us to continue to talk, and we are obviously looking for a vote, depending on what comes out of this, in order to proceed to tell the select board that what the outcome of this committee's vote is, and if it's positive and affirmative, then to go ahead and schedule a special town meeting in great part because of this. So I hope that's allowed, because I'm sorry to say I forgot to bring the updated
well,
application.
this application that Bridget sent out actually has all of the required information that we needed for the CPA application. So it has the new requested amount, it has how much funding is coming from other sources, it has why the project's important, and it has details about each parcel of land. So I would say that this checks the boxes we need for the CPA application, plus having the initial draft that's in.
And I can then create it based on numbers in here, and you'll have it for your file, because I think it's pretty important to have that going back.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone have any qualms about that?
No, I don't.
I'm comfortable with that.
All right, great. Well, take it away, Mountain Waters.
All right, thank you so much for your time tonight. I apologize, my voice is muffled. I'm taking precautions and getting married later this month, so I'm trying not to get sick before then. But let me know if I need to speak up or if Bob can't hear me at all. But yes, we're very excited to continue to talk through this project and move it forward. So I know you've heard this all many times, but just to recap, and for any public who might be listening, the Mountain Waters project is a very exciting effort. Castro Land Trust and the Town of Southampton's Conservation Commission is undertaking with several other partners to hopefully protect over 1,000 acres in both Southampton and surrounding towns. And we applied for the State Landscape Partnership Grant. A brief note on that, we are still waiting for official word from the state. We're hoping, as always, to hear any day now. This is as long as we've ever had to wait to hear from a state grant. But our understanding is that we're simply waiting for the EEA Secretary's press schedule to allow for an announcement about the grant. And so we hope still to hear any day now, and we'll of course let the CPC know as soon as we hear anything at all. But yes, the state grant will allow for us to get up to 1.5 million for the state grant project, because the overall cost for the town of Southampton for all these acquisitions is close to 2 million. And of that 2 million project costs and the state grant funding, we're hoping to match with CPC funding up to around 420,000, as you'll see on the application. And that 420,000 would go towards the acquisition of over 600 acres of conservation land, protection of conservation land, and that would include over, let's see, 165 acres that the town would own in fee with public access, as well as additional almost over 350 acres that the town would have a conservation restriction interest in, with public access still determined, but at least some public access on the majority of that land. And just some highlights of those lands, that includes the top of Pomeroy Mountain, 150 acres on the top of the mountain that will be protected for both its scenic value and its conservation value. Looking at Glendale Ridge Winery as well for farmland protection and for its use as a public resource and event space. And then also what would be the newest and largest public recreation area in Southampton, spanning over into the West Hampton border. That would be over 350 acres in Southampton alone, over 400 acres if you count the West Hampton parcel as well. And that would all be open for public access and recreation there. So some very exciting elements that would be involved in this project. Just talking about the funds itself, that $420,000 that we're asking from the CPA funding represents only 15% of the overall project cost necessary for the town to protect and hold an interest in the 540 acres. So CPA funds would be leveraged nearly tenfold by the state grant, as well as funding that Kestrel is bringing in, both from our campaign fundraising, as well as some anonymous funders that we're working with and private donors as well. And then you'll see on the other pages, parcel by parcel, how we've broken down each amount.
Love that, that's so helpful.
I'm happy to talk through each parcel if that's helpful, or I can pause here for questions. I'm not sure what's most useful to you at this time.
One quick question on both of these EEA landscape request and also the additional privacy.
Yeah.
Is that, how concrete is that? If we vote to approve something, is that be contingent upon obtaining these? Maybe I'm going a step too far here.
Yes, we would have to say contingent on obtaining the state grant.
I would say so. That makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's something, we've done before and we're used to and wouldn't expect.
You're gonna get it. You're gonna get the state grant, I believe.
But the vote should say be contingent.
Yes.
That's a good question.
Any other questions or comments you'd like to share?
I have a bunch just because I've been in the thick of things, but I want to make sure other people had a chance. One is, I just want to say, I just believe in this project. It's incredible to be able to get this much land for $420,000. I think when we got Wolf Hill, which was 200 acres, CPA spent $320,000. It just, and the property that's most pristine at the northwest corner of Southampton is incredible property. And if we're gonna have public access to that, it's just a gift to the town. So overall, I just want to say.
And Pomeroy Mountain on that too.
Yeah, and Pomeroy Mountain on top of it. So I just want to say this is just an incredible opportunity. I also want to thank you, Bridget and Kestrel, because I've protected one land at a time. I can't imagine trying to do this with 10. The other side of that is I just want to be upfront with everybody here is, this is a moving target, because you may have someone who owns the land and gets sick and has a change in family status, and there's sort of until it's done, there's a chance it has to be renegotiated, but they're doing their best effort to get commitments from people, but it's just to be upfront it's a moving target. Even when it's just one land, and when there's 10, it's even more. So, but it's incredible. Kudos to you folks, because this is just a great project. So I did have a couple of things that I wanted to clarify, if it's okay. So just to be upfront with everybody here, we talked about a discrepancy possibly in the acreage of parcel 1.
Yes, we did. So I think you'll see on the application here for parcel 1, we have listed 236 acres. The assessor's data lists it at 183. So the 236 figure was based off the appraiser we're working with. He did some GIS analysis. And so obviously a survey is really what's needed to determine the acreage. So in anything here, it's possible acreage may change once we get to the survey point. So
it's still an incredible resource in my book. But I just want to make sure people knew about that. The other one was actually for parcel 3. Is this actually multiple parcels?
it is multiple parcels.
Is one
yes.
owner, or is it multiple owners?
It's one owner.
Okay, I wasn't sure how hard that was going to be negotiated. Actually, parcel 1, I think your numbers on the top of page 3, I guess, you have the acquisition cost of $30,000 and the CPS. I think there's a zero
Probably
missing.
300,000.
Okay, just want to make sure that
Yeah.
when it gets.
Yeah, that would be quite a bargain, wouldn't it?
We're gonna pay 44,000 for 30,000.
I just want to make sure it goes out that side. That's correct.
Yes, thank you for that.
So I think both to the select board, but also the committee, I think they should understand that this issue of the DEA grants are a reimbursement grant. If you could
Yes.
explain that to them.
Yeah, so with the reimbursement grant, for anything we requested the state to fund, whatever partner is getting that funding will need to front those costs first before the state will reimburse. So you'll see that comes into play most with parcel number 9 for the town. So you notice for every other parcel, either another partner is the one handling the closing costs, or we're getting the funding for the town from private funding, and so the state funds aren't even gonna come into play. But for parcel 9, if that were to go through, we would need the town to front that initial acquisition cost. And I know Ed is very familiar with doing that and has a better understanding of how the town usually goes about that, but that would need to be fronted before the state would reimburse
And the
that.
select board has heard this, so they're aware
Yeah.
that it has happened.
We've done it with other parcel and with other projects with the drinking water protection. I believe there was reimbursement cost with Clearwater Woodland. I believe it was, a reimbursement grant, and some of the others too, the small grants we've done, the
Actually,
neighborhood
I
outreach.
think the
grants.
Greenway grants work that way also.
Yeah,
But just to make sure people know
Good
that.
people.
Yeah, no, that's good to clarify.
Actually, I did have a question on the total cost. You listed $2.7 something million for the CPA properties. Is that for all the properties or just the South?
All the properties in Southampton.
So the others go above that, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you,
I would say in terms of, I don't think you need to go through each section of this, but if there's any other like updates or changes, things that are different from when we had the initial presentation with Mark Walmsley, if you could just highlight that,
Yeah, so I think, to Mark's point, it's important again to understand that these things are a moving target and all negotiations are still ongoing with landowners. Nothing is under a purchase and sale agreement yet. So, figures could change either due to landowner negotiations or when we get to the appraisal point itself. Obviously, if the town votes funding through and the appraisal, increases or decreases, that might change the overall funding cost. But the important part is that the CPA request won't increase. So the CPA request will stay fixed no matter what changes with negotiation and the actual acquisition appraised value. So we might, need to fundraise privately more, change with the state contract, but the CPA numbers are what they are being requested right now.
that's good to know. I mean, so whatever you vote to support,
Yeah.
it will not, even if the appraiser came in higher than the predicted.
And the legal costs are going to be sort of covered for this for the most part?
Yeah, so the state grant does allow us to use the funds towards legal costs for title and closing.
Any later development of trails and stuff is something that may come back to here to the town to do.
That's right. And that was discussed in the last meeting, I think, trail development, kiosks, parking lots, things like that. That's
Later.
another phase.
Right.
But let's get some volunteers together.
Yeah.
Come see me.
And again, so only 2 of the parcels in this list are ones we would own in fee, and the other ones are conservation restrictions?
Yes.
Okay.
That would be parcel 3 and 6, I guess?
Yes.
3 and
Okay.
6.
And one there's pretty good likelihood that's going to have public access in your negotiations so far?
I have met that landowner myself, so Bridget, and that, you can go on it now.
Oh, yeah, he's
And
been
people
great.
do go on it. He
Yep.
doesn't like ATVs,
Okay.
but I think he has, in fact, allowed hunting. But if anybody wonders and wants to go there, I believe that I could contact him and we could arrange and he might be thrilled to take people on a tour.
So my other comments are, assuming that we approve this, is that we have to be advocates in the town for getting it through, because this can be selling to select board a little bit and to the town. So I'm just hoping that we talked about, and just helping them on the questions I asked were more to make sure we understand so we can
Yeah.
help sell it. I didn't mean to be negative in any of that. The piece that I think may come before the select board with some questions are this piece that's not in here of the parcel 4 that's potentially going to be
Yeah.
Holyoke
Waterworks,
Waterworks.
yeah.
And at least I know there may be some resistance at the select board and talking about how to look at that. I have my personal issues. If there was a longer time, I would ask for more strict negotiation before we pass anything, but I don't want to have the thing fail at this point necessarily. But I think if you had to sell that to the town and to the select board,
Yeah.
it's something that needs to be pursued, so.
Yeah, and I think this section, CPA request by parcels, is really compelling because you can see 4 isn't on there, the Holyoke Waterworks one isn't on there, the ones in Montgomery and East Hampton aren't in there. West Hampton. So I think that's a really compelling thing we can share, and we should have some version of this if this moves forward in the town warrant. But yeah, I agree. We're all going to help advocate for this if this moves forward.
So there is another thing that I want to bring up, having spoken to both Bridget and Mark Walmsley ad nauseum, probably in there. But, and that is that this is a partnership, meaning the fact that we've got other partners involved, be it other municipalities, Holyoke, Waterworks, and also in some cases, donors that are choosing to be anonymous, is a critical factor in the project. And it's a project in its whole. It's not something parceled out. I am sensitive to people's individual concerns and albeit valid concerns about access, et cetera, or anything like that. So I think in terms of the point you're bringing up about selling this to the public and being able to speak articulately about this is important to say, we're doing this for the wider value. We're doing this for the benefit of the town, and this is a project. And we have to be balancing all the potential grant requirements, the partnership concept, with small, little, important issues, but they're just one sort of, and that's how I would think about it.
Is part of the state grant the partnership process? Is that sort of a requirement of the
Yes,
state
the Latin
grant?
State Partnership, part of the name is really encouraging working with multiple partners. And it's really the only state grant that allows for that mechanism to have so many partners involved. And so they encourage collaboration where possible, especially in a way that, protects multiple different conservation values, whether it's wildlife habitat or public recreation or drinking water supply.
So that's another really compelling thing to bring up to the town is that, we wouldn't have gotten, or you wouldn't have gotten those state funds if it wasn't for the partnership. So you can say the Holyoke Waterworks partnership was necessary in order to get this huge amount of matching funds from the state. It's like a cost-benefit analysis here. We're getting a huge amount of conservation land for this, as you said, like relatively minimal amount of money, and the partnership did what it had to do to make the whole project a success. So I think that's another helpful angle.
Also having even those numbers from past projects like Wolf Hill, like I didn't know about that. That was only 100,000 less, but only one small conservation area. I think that's really interesting.
So they're all great.
Yeah,
Great points
I
to
mean,
bring up.
In towards Boston, they're spending $6 million to get 200 acres or less.
And it is interesting with this grant, it used to be blanket across the state that every applicant needed to find 500 acres, and only just this fiscal year they changed the requirements, and now out towards Boston you only need to find 200 acres because they're acknowledging that cost difference as well as, developed.
So, to get this much land anywhere in
Yeah.
Massachusetts for this amount of money for this town is incredible.
Especially at this time, opinion-wise, I also think this is a fantastic project. I think it's an absolutely great deal for our town. I do think one thing we should, maybe bring up here, just in case any members of the public are watching this, is more about the public access. So our last couple meetings where we talked about the public access to each partner, to each parcel, We're not recorded. So just taking a moment to share about that. Most of the parcels have public access or likely public access.
You are recording.
What was that?
You are recording.
Yes, I just mean previously, the previous two
Oh, okay.
meetings where we talked about it were not.
Okay.
So most of the parcels have public access, and even when we don't own it in fee, we have a co-held conservation restriction with Kestrel, which means, but Kestrel has said that they will take on as much of the sort of land management and logistics of that as we want them to. So Southampton could have as much or as little, actual work involvement in those shared conservation restrictions, which I think is great. So we still have, a vested interest in the property, but we don't necessarily need to be taking on more work. That Kestrel is committed to taking care of
Yes,
the
so
property.
as part of our campaign funds, we put towards the stewardship reserve that we have in order to manage those lands. So we're willing to take on that cost.
And,
So-
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Parcel 3 and 6 would be the ones owned by the town. I'm sorry if I'm naive. Would that be then, like Conservation Commission would be in charge of sort of taking care of those? Or is that sort of like unknown yet?
So as a fee holder, they'll be the, first stop for management, and Conservation Commission will decide how they want to manage that, whether it's more passively or more actively. But because of the CPA funding going towards this, Kestrel will also hold a conservation restriction on it. So we'll still take on that burden of monitoring the land. And
So
making
those
sure
two-
that the conservation restriction is enforced.
So those two properties, Kestrel will hold a conservation restriction.
Yes,
Great.
because of first
Pretty,
CPA guidelines.
it's a pretty sweet deal.
So can you clarify a little bit on that, Bridget? Because I know some of the other local towns I love to hike that you can see on the kiosk, it says Kestrel. And yet I think that, I'm thinking Williamsburg, there are lovely, beautiful paths, but I think Kestrel volunteers, or maybe through their own conservation conservation commission, participate in maintaining the trails. Is that, because that I think is what Kathleen is asking. Would the Conservation Commission in Southampton be doing trail maintenance, et cetera?
Yeah, if they chose to have trails on their fee lands, and I think, Kestrel will be happy to collaborate with you on maintenance as well, but I think the commission would be the ones dictating the trail
Right.
maintenance and,
So the Conservation Commission?
yes,
Okay.
if it's your fee land.
Or designees, I guess, or
What's that?
designees. Right.
Or designees?
Yeah, no,
Is that what you said?
Yep.
that's helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
So I did want to clarify one other point, so in each of these parcels, for the CPA money to go into it, we have to have a vested interest. So owning a CR or owning the land
Correct.
meets that requirement.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have comments to share or questions?
So a couple of minor questions to get into nitpicking. But all the acquisition costs, are these like purchase and sale agreements that you'll have with the owners, or how firm are these?
They're not purchase and
acquisition
sale
costs?
agreements, they are restricted appraisal numbers that we got when we first applied for the grant, so they're not yet full narrative appraisals, which we'll need to get, before we close on the land and have a purchase and sale agreement in place. So like I mentioned, the numbers could change slightly, but I think firm enough for us to give a clear picture of the CPA costs.
And one other money nitpicking thing. On parcel 9, we had talked at the last meeting about possibly the owner wanting to retain a section of frontage lots there and just using them in the back portion of the property. It's a $250,000 acquisition. I know that was, this is two nuts compared to this 2.7 million we're talking about. It's just,
Yes, so I can say that they're still one of the most under negotiation landowners. We even met with them only just today, and as you can see, I think I didn't show it, that we've actually changed the acreage down to 8 right now is where the landowner is looking at, whereas before I put 15. So because it's frontage lot, obviously the price is much higher. And so we're still looking to figure out how to make it work best within the scope of this grant and make sure we're getting the best conservation value for the funding the town is putting in. So it might mean, carving off some frontage lots still, and that's what it looks like right now with the 8 acres, because yeah, at the cost, they were looking to protect the whole thing. It just didn't really make sense at the time, given the current CPA balance and how it weighed in with the rest of the conservation land.
So my understanding of that 8 acres is, I think there's 5 like potential building lots, and it's the southernmost 2 lots that potentially would go into full conservation
Yeah,
restriction.
that's my
And the other
understanding
would be not included under those 8 acres.
At the moment, yeah, that's how negotiations stand.
But the key point she's saying is it's still being negotiated,
Yeah.
it's still being
Yeah.
chatted about. And I happen to believe that the landowner really doesn't want to see houses built on any of them, but on the other hand, the landowner is trying to balance their concerns.
It's the most expensive buildable
Yeah.
lot of all of this, so
So
that's
I'm
the
glad
tricky
you
part.
pointed that out, Mark, that's good, Mark. That Mark, darn.
And that parcel 9 has a reimbursable town cost?
Yes, so that was the
Okay.
one, the only one the town wanted to put up reimbursable costs.
And I'm sorry I don't know the answer to this, but in order to make that upfront payment, do we need to have a full appraisal to actually make that payment rather than just a restricted appraisal?
For all these, you will have a full appraisal in
Okay,
place.
by then, by that point. Okay, great.
Appraisal's only good for a year, is that right? So,
Correct.
so that if you do it too early, you're paying for it twice, and so. that-
And let's face it, things have changed so much.
Yeah.
That's why they're doing it that way, so.
I want to raise something else that's related, and Mark Donald knows this very well, because he's on the Public Safety Building Committee with me. And there's a couple three actually, other very large projects going on in town that are going to cost the town money, or be funded through grants of some kind. There's the Greenway, which is very big, and we're looking, and maybe Mark Cassis can speak to the specifics about, or you have another one, the fact that, it's going to be a state grant for that ultimately, for the building of it. But then there's...
Actually, that's a federal grant.
Oh, I'm sorry, federal.
Full federal funding,
Thank
we've
you.
been told.
But then there's 2 major building projects that we have before us and will be coming up for a couple in the next few years. And one is the senior center. That's not clear as to where that's going right now. And the other one, which is really important, is a public safety building. And I had somebody you would think would know the answers, who's in the municipal government, say to me, why are we conserving land when we need these other projects? And therefore, it has to be crystal clear that the funding for this is coming from CPA funds.
And cannot be
not-
used for,
That's correct,
Right.
and cannot be used for buildings and salaries and things like that. So part of the education has to be that. What's the 4th one? What are the-
Well, I think about this one.
Oh, the 4th thing on this one. Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, I found that really helpful at town meetings. You have to be explicit, like, this is not new tax money coming from you. This is money we already have being moved to a project. I remember when I attended my very first town meeting, that was a really important point for me, so I think it was definitely
and I
mentioned
think it's
that.
really important to tell the public it cannot be used for buildings and salaries. So it only can be used for those 3 categories. And
Fabulous, and that needs to come from those in the know who are on the committee and can speak about that, so. I was very surprised this individual thought that that was an option.
The Greenway, I think the only thing is my best guess is we'll come back here for 50,000 approximately for the 3rd phase of the planning grant.
Okay.
Which we could still afford even if we bought this.
But not, the building, which is going to be lots, is supposed to be full federal funding. So
Okay.
we don't have to, town shouldn't have to worry
And
about
that's
it.
the Greenway? Yeah.
That's the Greenway.
Okay, but Bridget, even though Mark Cassis has provided an update on the amount in the funding, and it exceeds the 426.88 number right now, it still could be paid out over 2 years, and there'll be funding in
We
fiscal year
vote
2020.
now, and it can be released whenever. We've had a lot of projects that still haven't been released.
Okay. Good. All right.
Is that correct?
So it's
Yeah.
420 now, but over the next fiscal year, there'll be additional funds.
No,
For
Yes,
we
there's more
agreed to
funds
the-
coming in.
Yeah, they'll be coming in for the other project. if we have
the
a
other
project.
projects, okay.
Yeah, so saying yes to this project does not preclude us from, it doesn't drain our entire account for the year. It doesn't preclude us from potentially voting for other projects.
We have a debt that we have to pay on Pomeroy Meadow water.
The water protection.
And the Greenway is the one that I know of, so that's about in the ballpark of $100,000 we have to make sure we come up with sometime before now in May. And
Yes, but that won't be a problem.
yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
So we have to come up with wording for a vote.
Yeah, would anybody like to make a motion?
Can I try?
Do you want to give it a start? Janet, you
vote
ready?
To approve $420,688 for the Mountain Waters project. Is that what we're calling that?
From undesignated.
From undesignated, contingent on approval of the state, what's the name of the state?
Landscape Partnership.
State Landscape Partnership Grant.
Great.
So,
Everybody like the sound of that? Hey,
I'll
Bob, are you
I'll
still
second
there?
that.
Yes, I am.
Do you have any questions, and did you hear the language of that motion?
Yeah, I did. Yep.
Do you have any concerns or thoughts?
No, I'm fine. You've covered everything I had questions on.
Okay, great. Sorry I didn't ask you that earlier before we started making motions. Okay, do we have a second?
Oh, I'll second it.
All right, all in favor of approving this project? Oh, any discussion?
Any comments? Did we, again, back, is this the point in time that we added contingency or not?
Well, I think he,
I said contingent on approval of the specific name of that grant.
It's-
With all my comments?
Landscape Partnership
Yes.
Grant.
yes.
But yes.
Any other points of discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Do we need to do, because this is a Zoom meeting, do we need to do individual?
Oh yeah, say your last names. Simmons, aye.
Cassis, aye.
Haley, aye.
Goes by.
Darnold, aye?
Brown eye.
All right, project approved unanimously. So next step, we're gonna get it on the warrant for the town meeting.
Let's go to select board first, right?
All right, then we're gonna submit that to the select board.
I checked that with Ed today. It goes to the select board for approval for the warrant. They're not
Yes.
approving the project,
Okay.
approving it for the warrant.
Yes, so, and would you like us to draft the warrant, or is it open space
I
manager?
think it's your bailiwick.
We're on it.
I think Ed will probably, he has to send it to legal, so,
We
when you
will
see drafts.
get on that lickety split, because we know we are on a tight timeline.
Great.
So
Yes.
I'm going to talk about, can you update us with any changes?
Absolutely.
And can you let us, I guess maybe more open space issue, how we can work with the town to support the project and talk about, getting the word out to come to town meeting and stuff.
It's true. Well, the next open space committee meeting is a week from tomorrow night. Anybody's welcome to come. It's an open meeting. Janet's on the open space committee. And anyhow, it's here in this room 1 week from tomorrow night at 6 p.m. And you're welcome to come because we will have to talk about how to do that. I don't think we're going to know the date of the special town meeting within the week, but I doubt it. So, engagement of the public is always critical in getting the word out and how we're going to do this and listening. And I don't care about Facebook, but I believe that is always considered important, and there's
I'm on
always
it.
a
I got
handful of
it.
people that are going to come up with something, and we just need to be sure whatever I don't respond. The response gives fact and doesn't
Yes.
engage in an argumentative ways.
Absolutely. Bob, just a heads up that this 40-minute meeting is going to run out in 6 minutes, but we have no other votes on the table, so if you see us leave, I'm sorry, but you're not missing
No,
anything.
it's all right. You've covered the part I wanted to be here for, and
Okay.
yeah, there's only 6 minutes, so I'll disappear once the time is up.
Okay.
We may talk about future budget process, but it's nothing, no final decision, just reviewing what was sent out and
Yes.
what we may do later.
And that's actually next,
Yeah.
so if we,
So we're done.
no further comments, thoughts, concerns about the Mountain Waters?
Thank you for all your
Thank you,
work.
guys. So excited about
Do it
this.
all with Conservation Commission.
Yeah.
Let me know.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
So, our next topic is just some more detailed updates on our budget, and not just our budget, but sort of our account balances. This has been a long and tumultuous learning experience for Mark and I, and it's still in process. We have a meeting with Stuart Saginaw in the future, in the near future. But we want to just keep you guys up to date on what's going on. Mark, would you like to take it away?
I'm glad to. So part of this sort of shifted because we were trying to figure out how to get the Mountain Waters project potentially funded without having to go putting out a bond, which is complicated getting it passed and expensive. So as we did that, we had spoken to the executive officer of the Community Preservation Coalition, Stuart Saganor, and brought up this question of how do we do this, and realized that first of all, at that point we thought we didn't have enough money to fund the other project, but realized that most towns actually pass a budget every year, which includes what you have at the end of this fiscal year and what you expect for the next fiscal year, and in the annual town meeting pass that as a budget. So we've had to go back to Bradley multiple times trying to piece together what really is there. I've gotten confusing information. And so this one will at least know what we have and for the whole year. And I think we thought we were going to have to do that with this special town meeting in order to avoid issuing a bond. So we realized there's not enough time to do this for the special town meeting that may come up this year, but I think we should plan to do that for next year. So we put a budget together to try to address that, and Bob, I am sorry that you won't be able to see it. So the end of balance as of the end of fiscal year 23 gave numbers, and it was $906,000 undesignated, $68,000 open space, $164 historical preservation, and $408 approximately community housing. That did not include subtracting the things that were voted in at the annual town meeting in May, because they consider that being in the next fiscal year. So it's as of 7/1, the actual numbers below that are $493,000 for undesignated, $3,000 for open space, $216,000 for historical preservation, and $460,000 for community housing, and then we have administrative budget of $7,500. So it's a total of approximately $1.10 thousand dollars, or $1.1 million. So that's what we can actually spend off of, which is why we could vote for this. So we try to project forward about what we are likely to have in 24, and the 25 is we're going to need to rework as we get closer to next year. But last year we got $301,000 collected in the 3% surtax for the town. That was up about $20,000 from the year before. For the 2 years before this, we got 100% of the state match.
Yeah.
This year, they're not anticipating that. We were told by the CPA coalition that expect about 55%. And so we put in a conservative of 50% of that as what we can expect for next year as a working place. And then if you take this 3% of the $301,000 and assume we're going to make the same amount next year, it's been going up every year, then we also have $301,000, which would be spread 10% open space, 10% historical, 10% community housing. So those numbers on the green line of projected balances as of 6/30/24 would give us, that doesn't include the 420 we just potentially committed, but and the bond for expected bond for Pomeroy Manor next year, but it's a good amount to be working from.
Yeah.
Okay?
As you can see, we could still afford, Greenway project, other potential projects that come up.
And ideally, once we do our homework with the staff of the coalition, I think we should try to pass a budget in the May annual town meeting, or whatever date it's going to be in the spring, that includes actually projection through fiscal year 25, which the numbers below that are a little more, it's the same concept, the numbers may change a little bit, so that we actually can say we can spend off of X amount rather than guessing each time. But we don't have to make any final decision there, but we'll bring this back once we work with the coalition again to clarify a few process issues. But any questions or thoughts?
Thanks for doing this.
And I mean, it's been
Yeah, both of you. Yeah.
And I want to add that, and this is something also that we forwarded, because I always like to reiterate things that were forwarded in emails, just in case not everyone has time. The beautiful thing about approving a CPA budget with the projected income for the year is that you can spend that projected income even before it actually hits your bank account. So, it comes in throughout the year, quarterly, but as long as it's approved at the town meeting, bye Bob. As long as it's approved at the town meeting, you can spend it. And it turns out, it seems like what we usually vote at the annual town meeting, which says 10% is going to CPA, and it's sort of we're voting to like transfer those funds, but that same article could be our budget article moving forward. So we just add additional information, and we're gonna find out what that additional information is.
I think it has to be worded that it's actually, these are our reserves. Specifically, the reserves allows you to say it's there to spend in the future. So you'd have, one is, actually they don't use undesignated, they just use reserves, and then they open space and recreation reserves, so that the wording, we'd love to make sure that it meets the needs there. But apparently, they were a bit surprised we're not doing that, and most towns apparently have a budget that looks like that.
Yeah, so we're just, evolving to be better and better every month, honestly, so very proud of us.
There's a chance that they may also, right now, he is putting the things that are passed in the spring town meeting into the next year's fiscal, he doesn't account for it till the next fiscal year, and that may be something they advise us to do differently. I don't.
Yeah, so we'll work that out. But we'll come back to you all with more details and more final sure numbers and decisions.
The other piece I meant to make copies of, and I realized I did not. So just so people are aware, every year we're supposed to submit a CP1 form to the state, which is how much was collected with that 3%. It was $301,000. That's been submitted. And then a CP2 form, which tells the reserves that are available at the end of the fiscal year. And the numbers are somewhat similar. I can pass this around. The total was $1.6 million in 2022 and $1.547 million. A slightly different spread in terms of where the money's, but that doesn't include the things we're voting in for the May annual town meeting. And if people are interested, this includes what we've been collecting for the annual surcharge and the percentage. We've been getting matches every year. I'll just pass it around.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see all the way back to 2010 or something in there.
First year's made 09 was. Oh, actually,
2002.
2002.
Oh, whoa. Yeah, that's really awesome.
Yeah.
It's really cool to see.
But anyway, I found that helpful just to look at.
And you can see the ebb and flow of how the state match is going. Like sometimes it's at 100, sometimes it's like 50.
So what's this mean?
That's the state trust. That's the match. That's the formal term for it is the Community Preservation Trust. That's where the money comes out of.
Cool.
And it apparently gets paid out of when people buy a new home. It's part of the fees that come from that goes into that. And then sometimes there's a supplemental money that comes in from the general budget. This year was not included. I think the coalition is going to request a supplement, which they were able to get in last year, but we don't know if that's going to happen.
And if they did that, then this line in our budget that says 50% of 301 would be more like, who knows, 60, 80%. But we want to be conservative and bank on what we actually think we're going to get.
The other piece, which I was surprised as we went through this, is actually a fair amount of income from interest on our accounts. It's like $28,000
blew my mind.
Interest on the money that we have sitting out someplace. And maybe more or less the future, but there's a couple.
What is the ATM account adjustments? That's a lot of money.
So that was that 10% that at the annual town meeting, they voted 10% to go to
annual town meeting.
So you can see it zeroes out. So it's minus from undesignated.
I didn't know what ATM was.
Plus,
Fine.
But yeah, as you can see, the interest for FY24 projected is almost $23,000, which is really spectacular.
we were going to estimate 80% of what they made last year. it's an arbitrary number, but it was reasonable.
Yeah.
Well, this was really helpful, also just to know, as far as like voting for this really big project, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll actually be okay.
So yeah, I think last time we were like, what is the current, budget and all that, so thanks for doing that homework. And
Yeah.
This is a little bit different than the first time I was here, the breakdown that we had.
I know, so
Great
different.
job, yeah.
Like I said, we're evolving.
We had a significant change.
But it was a change for the better. It's so much better to find out you have hundreds of thousands more than you think you
that's
have
surprising.
than the
right?
opposite. Yeah.
But thanks for this.
No problem. So I was going
Go
to raise
on.
one other thing before we close.
Sorry.
A personal request that for future meetings, I am new, and I'm sure all of us may need this, but I would like at some time in the future get a report from housing, and then at a separate time from parks and from open space and
Concom?
was that Concom?
Concom? Is that
Yeah,
part of it? Or
only-
Definitely.
that doesn't-
Okay.
yeah, as it fits into open
Okay.
space and recreation,
Yeah.
and also from historical so we know what priorities they consider, so that when a project comes up to us, we're not just reacting to it, we have a background to assess it. I feel like I don't have that background to know, rather than being reactive, we can be.
Actually, I kind of was wondering too, like, I think I missed the first meeting of this, like, fall time. Or no, sorry, that was actually in June. Sorry, that was in June, I think, when we like, introducing ourselves.
The very first one, yeah.
Yeah, I tried to zoom it, it just didn't work. But, what was I gonna say? I was kind of curious, like, I know I'm kind of the liaison from Conservation Commission, that's why I showed up, kind of feels like out of the blue, but it's been very eye-opening, and I'm just learning a lot from everyone. But I'm kind of curious to know, like, are folks liaisons of other, they are, okay.
Yeah, so we have
I'm
a
not-
great
okay.
list of like where everybody comes from.
Okay.
So the way the committee is constructed is there's supposed to be 9 members. We actually don't have anyone from finance right now.
Okay.
And 6 of those members are liaisons. So we have liaison from Concom, which is you. We have planning board liaison, which is Mark Donald.
Okay.
We have housing authority liaison, which is me. We
Okay.
have parks and highway liaison, which is Randall. We have select board liaison, which is Joy. We have historical commission liaison, which is Bob. And then we have these 2 wonderful people who are the 2 elected or appointed
Names elected, actually.
members. And
Right.
so they're not specifically representatives of any committee, but Mark happens to be on the Greenway committee, so
Yeah,
I kind of
that's
see you as a, you'll definitely have something to report out for us in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, so it's really nice. What we've done in the past is, once we get through general business, we'll have updates from each sort of committee on what's going on with them. We can see what projects might be coming down the pike in the next year or two. So, next time you're at your Concom meeting, you can say, okay, we have a CPC meeting coming up. Is there anything you guys want me to share if you don't already know the answer to that?
Right. Okay. Yeah, no, they were, really curious about the mountain waters and where it stood. And so, now I'll have a conversation with them about that. That's voted in, and, the rest is, we'll see. Time will tell. Yes.
Anything else on budget before we move on? So the next,
Actually,
go
can I bring
ahead.
something? So I think by the time we get to January through May, the state funds will have been transferred into our accounts. So we were hoping in the $150,000 range. So that gives us that space to take care of when we put on the town warrant, if we have a Greenway committee request, and if we have the Pomeroy Mountain. So I think we're going to be okay for that. I don't think the issue of, and it may be that we're doing, if other big projects come before that, we may have to do approval contingent on our budget being passed at the town meeting. So just for people to think about that.
Okay.
Anything else? Okay. So the next thing on the agenda, we're going to have to push because that we were going to review the CPA projects application. And I did send it to the coalition for review a few weeks back and asked them to get it back to me by today. And then they sent me a very, oh no, whoops, like 5 minutes before I started here, being like, sorry, so I haven't had time to integrate their comments, but that's not an urgent business, so I'm just gonna move that to next month's meeting. So that is why we're not covering that agenda item. Any other things anyone wants to bring up before we schedule our next meeting?
My baby's due November 3rd.
Ooh, congratulations.
And you can see me like here above. So like a big belly right now. Everything's good, yeah. Don't know if it's a boy or girl, but I'll let you guys know.
That's exciting.
And I was trying to Marlize, like, what is the protocol? Because I'm gonna need some time to transition and like, you know, like with my other son, like, you know, just, you know, I'm not gonna really be present, you know, so.
Bring your baby with
anyways,
you.
yeah, so we'll be in touch though.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
gonna kinda,
fun.
you know.
Joy is also gonna be
she's
popping one out.
January,
Sorry, am I supposed to not say that on video? But yeah, she's in like January. So yeah, you can absolutely, because we don't have too hard a time getting a quorum at this meeting. Knock on wood, luckily. You know, you can sit out or you can listen in on Zoom or whatever you want to do.
If Zoom works.
Yeah. Keep me
No,
posted.
yeah. So basically, I'll do my best. I'll do my best.
So you said November 3rd. So let's schedule our next meeting on November 3rd. No, I'm just kidding. November 2nd.
We'll meet you in
Baby's
the
gonna be
hospital.
early.
Yeah.
Feeling.
So let me just get or anything else, any other business before we move to scheduling? Okay, let me get my agenda book. So today is the first Wednesday, is that right? So
I do like meeting in person though. I know.
too.
I know. Like Concom meets via Zoom. It's just different, you know. Like I don't know.
it is, and this is such a big committee too, that it's like,
it's helpful to meet in person.
yeah, I think. Okay, let me just get my calendar. So I'm looking at, November 1st is the first Wednesday. Another option would be November 8th, but let me just super quick double check my work calendar, which is elsewhere. I have 2 different calendars I have to check, so. Okay. But as you guys look, let me know if one of those dates works better for you.
Good either way.
Okay, first looks good for me. So I think it's better to keep it on the first week of the month. It's better to keep it steady just in case, you know, other meetings happen to be coming up. So I would say, if nobody has any problems with that, I would say November 1st at 5:30 p.m. Any conflicts?
Fine.
I'll have to check.
Okay. So if anybody finds out, you know, someone who's not here today, or if you look at your schedule and find you can't do the 1st, you know, the 8th is also like only a little more than 30 days from now, so we could move it if we need to. But let's tentatively consider it the 1st. And with that, I think we can adjourn. Can we move? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.